Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we will cover all the home teams: Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans. We'll talk about Troy Dannon departing from Tulane and the athletic directorship now open. To break it down for us, one of the best we have, Fletcher Mackel of Channel 6 Sports. Fletch, welcome back to the show. Good to have you as always. And you guys got some great things going on over at Channel 6. I love the program on Sunday night. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, game on every Sunday night. Normally at 11 o'clock, but during football season, after NFL football and our news, and then my brother, who's also our news anchor, does a segment called The Hot Seat. They got a lot going on with debates, so he does debates every Sunday night. But yeah, game on every Sunday night. Stay up later, as you like to say. Set your DVR or just record it and watch it on Monday morning when you wake up. A lot of good sports content wrapping up the week. And then every day we have, obviously, sports content on WDSU at 4, 5, 6, and 10. And,
of course, your blog and also, again, on social media. Your social media of choice is?
I guess X.
Yeah,
is that
X
it now?
now.
X now? Yeah, it was Twitter. So, yeah, at Fletcher WDSU. And then I write columns and mock drafts and things for WDSU.com and our digital platforms.
Good to have you back. And I know, and Fletcher, I say it all the time on the radio show when he comes on. What I do is, again, I set the DVR, but now I take a couple of shows after in case football goes over a little bit. That way I got the entire show. So you might want to do that as well. Like I tell you on this show, set the DVR, you'll never miss the show, right? Sure. There you go. Let's start off with the Saints. Again, huge win, obviously, against the Patriots, 34-0, dominating in all phases. It was really a good get-well game for them. That was something that was needed, especially after the last 5 quarters previous to that game. This looked like a New England team that, again, is a shell of what it used to be, and a New England team that looked like they were giving up again in, week 5. Your thoughts on last week's win?
Yeah, look, a win's a win in the NFL. At the end of the season, if the Saints are in the playoffs, nobody's going to say the Patriots have the #1 pick. They're awful. That being said, for context, the Patriots are awful, like beyond awful. Like, to me, the worst team I've seen this year in the NFL. That looks like a team that not only is void of talent on offense, void of talent on defense, but that is mostly quit. I mean, that didn't even seem like a team that cared. That looked like a rent-to-win game in college when one team pays the other one to come in knowing they are overmatched, and you just pay for the win. That is something you don't see in the NFL, games like that. So the Patriots are awful. I think the Saints are good. I still don't think they're great. I mean, look, 12 penalties, way too many penalties. They added more motion to the offense and a lot of pre-snap penalties they got to clean up. Foster Moreau said it best on Monday. we can't get fat on ourselves because of what we did. That was not a Super Bowl performance. And he's right. That, look, it's a step in the right direction. And after a couple of weeks of struggles, especially offensively against Tampa Bay, the blown lead against Green Bay, that is a get-right game, but now string a few together. You got a rookie quarterback this weekend that I think DeMeco Ryans is a good head coach. I think they're changing the culture in Houston. They're a young team, but they're still young.
Yes.
As the veteran team, you should go in there and find a way to win, just like they did against Carolina with a young quarterback. And then you've got some games, again, that are coming up that I still think are winnable games for you against teams like Minnesota and Indianapolis. Jacksonville's going to be hard because I think Jacksonville's underrated.
Right.
But you could hopefully string, 4 or 5 together and show that you're going to be right in the hunt and potentially the favorite to win the NFC South for the rest of the year.
Well, and that's what really, again, I think gets the fans up a little bit upset about what happened on the 5 quarters previous to the Patriots game, because you had Green Bay beat, and then you let them back in the game in that 4th quarter. And again, to me, on paper, the Saints are a better team than Tampa Bay, and then they allowed Mayfield to again scramble. They couldn't score on offense, and then of course again, that was probably the worst 5 quarters we've seen this season. When you look at the schedule, when you look at the quarterbacks, that's what gives you pause and hope if you're a Saints fan, that again, this could be one of those years that they do have a chance to get into the playoffs. They can win the division, but again, when you drop games like you did over those 5 quarters, again, everybody kind of went a little bit nuts because of how the situation kind of ended.
Yeah, and again, that's the great thing about the NFL is last year I remember I was making fun of Seattle because they lost Russell Wilson. They had 2 rookies playing tackle, left and right tackle. They had a rookie running back, and they had Drew Lock and Geno Smith battling to be starting quarterback. And then Geno Smith became the comeback player of the year. Pete Carroll put it in place, and the Seahawks surprised everybody, and are still surprising everybody. And Geno Smith is now a better player than Russell Wilson. Baker Mayfield was the #1 pick in the draft. And yes, Cleveland was rough. And then last year from Carolina to LA. Again, I think the Saints, top to bottom, are better than the Bucs.
Me too.
But I thought the Rams as Super Bowl champs were much better than Seattle last year. And yet Seattle, ended up making the playoffs and doing really well and is doing well this year. So, again, I try not to write off teams because that's the great thing about the NFL. Unlike other sports, teams can go from good to bad and bad to good pretty quickly. And there are always teams every year that the prognosticators and the people that cover it miss on because we think. Last year, I remember everybody was picking Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Tampa and Green Bay were 2 of the favorites in the NFC with the Rams to go back to a Super Bowl. Well, all 3 of those teams were bad last year. Tampa snuck into the playoffs. Brady got in, but Rodgers and the Rams certainly didn't. And so, again, I look at it and say that's what I like about the NFL. Now, that being said, I still think the Saints are talented. I still think the Saints can beat Tampa. I still think the Saints are the best team in the NFC South. And I think their schedule is favorable because if not now, when? I mean, you look at the schedule, they got Trevor Lawrence coming up. But they're going to get the Colts without Anthony Richardson. They're going to get Minnesota without Justin Jefferson. They're still got some. They're going to get Daniel Jones in New York. I mean, they got some weak teams on the schedule the rest of the way. That there's no reason to me why they can't finish 10-7 or 11-6 and should 11-6. Because next year when things flip, you may look at the schedule and go, man, oh man. That's
first place schedule,
Right. You're like a first place schedule, and you look at that and you say, whoa, that's a lot tougher. I look at Detroit and say, okay, they've got Detroit coming up, but other than that, there's not a lot of teams that I look at and say, wow, that's like the Saints are in a really rough spot when they get here.
Yes.
I don't see that. I just don't see it.
Right. Let's talk about the offense first. And again, the play of the offensive line really has played much better in the last 2 games. Penning obviously struggles at times, but your overall thoughts on, again, the struggles early, and do you think they've turned the corner here, or was that a little bit of fool's gold the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think they've done a better job than they did in week 1. I mean, week 1, it was awful. And even into week 2, Carr was sacked 4 times again in the Carolina game. I think they've gotten better. I still don't think a unit that was supposed to be this awesome strength of this team is playing up to the level it should play. And then obviously now we're talking about is Penning going to be out? Is Hurst going to be playing left tackle? There were reports yesterday that they could be making changes.
Do you think they will?
I don't think they will. Maybe
either.
I'm crazy. I just don't think they do knee jerk. Like all these people that were like, Pete Carmichael, that's just not how they operate. Pete Carmichael was never getting stripped of his play calling duties. Dennis Allen was never getting fired last year. I think that they believe in let's stick with it. Sometimes loyalty is to the point of a fault. But they don't do quick knee jerk, like this is how we operate. Some people like that kind of chaos theory, like got to keep you on your toes. If you're not doing it, we'll find somebody that is. We pull guys in and out. We make changes. We're not afraid.
It's not their MO.
That's ever. It's just not the way they've operated. It's not the way Mickey Loomis has operated in 2 decades. It really wasn't the way Sean Payton operated. Dennis doesn't operate. That's just not how they do it. So when people were like, Pete's got to go, it's like, this is crazy. Like, not after 1 week. Maybe if they were, 2-8, and the offense was terrible, well then sure, maybe at that point you could do it just as a symbolic gesture of we got to make some changes. But like, does Ronald Curry have a magic wand that like a different playbook that he's going to teach them in a week? He's been.
Who knows the playbook better than Carmichael?
And here's the thing. As somebody who goes out there, I told people this last year. Last year, people were like, Dennis Allen has to go. Dennis Allen's lost this team. I go, let me just help you out there. Dennis Allen's not lost his team. I go to the locker room 3 days a week. To a man, they believe in Dennis Allen, especially the defensive guys who are getting it done. Like, Dennis Allen never lost that locker room. They believed in him. Going out there and talking to these guys, they believe in Pete. Like, Kamara believes in him. Michael Thomas believes in him. Carr believes in him. There is nobody out there going, man, oh man, like maybe we should go with Ronald Curry. That's not where they are yet. And so if it was the players that felt like we need to be rejuvenated, re-inspired, we need Ronald Curry, maybe they do it. But that's not how they feel. I think they still trust Pete. And I love Ronald Curry. I think he should have been an offensive coordinator in this league already. And the fact that he's not is crazy. But I also don't think he's not all of a sudden going to implement Taysom's my quarterback and we're running RPOs 90%. Like, the playbook is the playbook. This is what they've installed with Carr in the offseason, in training camp, and through the first 5 games. It's not like he's going to like draw plays on a napkin and go, guys, this is it now. And now I've deciphered the Rosetta Stone. It's Alvin at Wildcat. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I know I'm being ridiculous saying that, but I feel like it's just as ridiculous that people think, pull him. That's it. And that's going to be the magic elixir that fixes everything.
I do think that the criticism was warranted.
Sure.
Okay?
Without question.
I mean, you base it off what happened last year in the first 4 games of this year. I mean, again, you look at it and that definitely was warranted. And the other part of it, I think he fell on the sword here and said, look, I got to go back and look, the teams self-scout themselves all the time. And this Peyton Bree's offense is enormous based on, again, how many years they were here, and he's been involved in it every step of the way. And he went back in the archives and pulled some stuff out that maybe we haven't seen in a while, and maybe that's some of the things that he has to do to not be so predictable, and also, again, to maybe utilize the talent that he has on this team now.
Yeah, and I also will say this, is that you're right, that somebody explained to me, another good journalist that has been covering this team for a long time, is that if you go back to 2006, and I'm like, you're right, they were more meat and potatoes that year. Like, Deuce McAllister rushed for 1,000 yards that year. Reggie rushed for 500. Peyton wasn't the air it out. Breeze threw for 5,000 in 2008, not 06 or 07. When Peyton got here, sure, they did that Superdome special, that end around the Devery Henderson, and they had a few cute plays to Reggie, but they were more meat and potatoes, like effective, efficient with Drew Brees. Don't turn the ball over, high percentage passes, timing and tempo, kind of keep the offense, find that rhythm and keep the defense on their heels. Then it evolved into a little bit more of an aerial circus, more creativity.
Shock and awe.
Yeah, Peyton like coming up with stuff and having a guy in Brees that could execute it at a level like no one else.
Agreed.
So I do think maybe scaling it back is something that could potentially work for them. I also think they have so many amazing playmakers on this team. I did like the fact that they used more motion last week, is that keep the defense guessing a little bit. That I think they lulled themselves into, our playmakers are better than your playmakers. We'll just come right at you. And they just never found that rhythm. So like, they may say it's getting too cute, like all this motion and trickery, but maybe it's not. Maybe that's kind of what they need. And also, I think that the best offenses in the league are certainly Kansas City. Andy Reid's at like a different level. Shanahan, I think, is the next best coach, 1A in the NFL. But then you look at like Mike McDaniel in Miami. And you look at McVay in LA. They are what NFL offenses want to be now. Like Peyton and Breeze in the 2000s and early 2010s, everybody wanted a piece of that.
Right.
Like, we got to go down there and study that and see that and do what they do. Now, that passed them up.
Right.
So I do think what they did is not that it won't be successful, but it was of a time and of a place, and it has to evolve in some way, shape, or form to keep up with what is now much better offenses and what looks like far more creativity in your system.
Right. And look, we saw Peyton do, again, stealing stuff from other teams all the time.
He always said that.
Always said it.
He said that was the biggest form of flattery. Like, we saw it and we wanted to do it.
Right.
So we incorporated it. I mean, he said that all the time in training camp. Yeah.
Right. And again, and look, that's a disciple of Peyton. So you know that Carmichael's looking at the same thing.
But, like, look at last week. Last week they did a play to Foster Moreau. Like the little pitch.
The shuffle.
That certainly looked a lot like what Miami was doing with Devon A-Chain. Like literally, like bluff him this way, and that's the last thing you think is we're going to do a pitch pass to the tight end from the 6-yard line. Like I thought that was probably something that said to me, okay, I don't think we'd have seen that the first 5 weeks, but we're seeing it now. Or the first 4 weeks, and we're seeing it now.
And to your point, you have so many playmakers. Why not again try to confuse the defense?
Sure.
And to me, that's going to be huge going forward. I want to go back to the offensive line for a moment. Do you anticipate changes there? Because I don't. I mean, again, unless there's an injury.
Sure, barring injury, I think that, look, they drafted Penning in the first round.
Right.
He's the starter this year. Once you've been benched, I remember Charles Brown. You know, Peyton gave up on him midway through the 2013 season, and they put in Teron Armstead, who was supposed to get coming from Arkansas Pine Bluff. He was going to get the red shirt.
That's right.
And it's like, you know what? Done. I've had enough of this guy. And that was it for Charles Brown. He was done. I mean, he was like a backup, and then he was gone. Like, that's a massive fail.
Right.
Massive fail. If they are already benching. I mean, Penning got the red shirt last year, and I know he was hurt, but he still could take mental reps and learn the system. Right. I get it. Then don't play him. Then don't just give him the job and say it's his. Now I know Hurst was battling with him. Then Hurst kicked inside when Pete went down in training camp. But still, if you drafted him that high, you have that kind of belief in him. If you give up now, like that again, that would go against what they have historically done.
Right.
And I look at that and say that's a massive, massive failure by your front office and scouting department. If you are already saying this guy's so bad, we got to pull him. Because again, could he recover from this and be a starter next year? Yeah, but you're basically saying we just need him to be average at that point. And you didn't draft him to be average. You drafted him to be a key cog for a long time.
Right. And again, I could see maybe before you do something like that and kicking him inside, much like they did with Pete.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he
came in as a tackle. They kicked him right to guard.
They kicked him inside to guard. Okay, because again, they felt like he couldn't handle the speed rushers on the outside. So maybe that might be his future. But I think they're sticking with him right now.
So do I.
Critique Carr for us again so far. What you've been able to see him as a quarterback.
So, like 2 years ago when Drew Brees retired, I wrote a column saying, because that was also rumblings and grumblings of, could John Gruden trade Derek Carr? Where are the Raiders right now? Would they go in a younger direction? Would Gruden get his own guy? Even though he had a good relationship with Carr, was he like an asset they could trade to go into a rebuild for a younger quarterback? And I said I think that the Saints should go after him. Like, I think that this is a guy that could benefit from a change of scenery. He's dealt with, like, the Raiders are considered one of the worst organizations. He could get out of there. He should be here. So I am a Carr guy. And you watch him in the arm talent, the way he spins the ball, how, like, there's everything to like about him. He's a stand-up guy. He's a smart guy. He accepts responsibility. He understands, like, how to be a leader of men. And he can do everything on the field. But is he ever going to go from good to great? Like Aaron Brooks. Aaron Brooks, to me, was a lot like Derek Carr. Like, maybe he wasn't quite the natural leader Derek Carr is, but boy, oh boy, Aaron Brooks was crazy talented. I mean, you watch Aaron Brooks in practice and you go, whoa, this guy can spin it. He can make every throw. He understands the offense. And he had some great seasons.
He did.
I mean, 2002, you go look at Aaron Brooks' numbers in 2002. He made the Pro Bowl, and he was awesome in 2002. But they were 7-9. Like, he could never go from good to great. And the Saints stuck with him because it's like, who are we going to get that's better? How do we get a better quarterback? This guy's good. We've got Joe Horn. We've got Deuce McAllister. We've got a good offensive line. All true. And they just could never go from good to great. My biggest fear with Carr right now is that there's going to be moments where he's really good. And you go, ooh, look at that. And then there's other moments where they're going to go 3 and out, and you're like, man, look at that. What happened? And because that was the frustration with Aaron Brooks. You knew this team could be good, but they just could never get it together after that one playoff year in 2000. I mean, look, 1, 2, 3, and 4, they were 7-9, 9-7, 8-8. I mean, I remember 02, they were 9-4. And they just had to win one of their final 3. And they had a trash Minnesota team. They had a really trash Cincinnati team that was like 1-13 at the time. And then they had a Rodney Pete-led Carolina Panthers team at home that was done. And they couldn't win one of those games. That's the difference in I couldn't get us from good to great, because you get into the playoffs, anything happens. My biggest fear with Carr right now is what I see is, unfortunately, I see a lot of Aaron Brooks. Tantalizing, you know he can do it. Can he go from good to great? And I just don't know.
Miller really showed me something last week. Kamara obviously back. They utilize him almost 20, 25, 24 carries, 24 touches the first week, 25 the second week. Williams is on IR, but again, he's been a guy that's been pretty good around the goal line. I like the 1-2 punch with Kamara and Miller. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think obviously it looks like they hit on this guy in the 3rd round. I still maybe thought the kid,
me too.
A-Chain, like
I liked him.
Yeah, out of Texas A&M,
and I like Spears as well.
Yeah, and obviously, like all those guys are kind of in that same grouping. But look, this guy. I mean, when you talk about the eyeball test, this guy exudes physicality and the ability. I mean, that's what they always seem to have when there was that, Thunder and Lightning and the Alvin Kamara and the Mark Ingram. And in stature-wise, he is much bigger than Mark Ingram. But I do think they have potentially found, since Ingram was in his prime. I mean, look, Ingram left and came back, and when he came back, he was not the same guy. He was at the tail end. But that 17, 18, when Ingram was a Pro Bowler and Kamara was in his role, I mean, I do think you're starting to see the potential of that. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, because Kendra Miller hasn't done it quite yet. But I think you're seeing the potential for that to take shape.
I agree. And look, one of the things that surprised me was, again, his wiggle, his moves, again, in the open field, which, again, I didn't think he had. And again, that was impressive to me. We've seen Carr has always had a security blanket, like Breeze. With the Raiders, it was Waller. It seems like his security blanket here in New Orleans is going to be Michael Thomas. They haven't done a lot with the tight ends so far. Again, some of that's been injury related.
Johnson,
okay, but again, it seems like, again, when he needs to get a play, when he's in a little bit of trouble, he's looking for Michael Thomas. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Now, again, he's missed him on some throws. He's made some bad throws. But I do think you're right. And I do think that's where Michael Thomas excels now. Look, they have Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave that can stretch you vertically. Michael Thomas was never that guy. Michael Thomas, when you think about it, the safety blanket for Drew Brees was the Michael Thomas slant. They'd run 5 of them a game because they knew we will execute this. In best case scenario, he wiggles the first tackler or makes a move and he picks up a first down or more. Worst case scenario is we're going to get 3 or 4 and it's just going to be kind of like our little pick-me-up, if you will. Like, hey, if we're struggling or if we did a run on first down and we got 2, let's go into this. Let's hit them quick with this and we'll put ourselves in 3rd and short. Like, that's the thing. Peyton and Breeze, it just seemed like lived in 3rd and short. And because of that Michael Thomas slant for so many years, it was an automatic anywhere between 4 and 7 yards. I do think Michael Thomas is back to running those short to intermediate routes where he excels, where physically he can match up against safeties, linebackers, little DBs. So I do think you're right that it does seem like when they need something, especially in that middle of the field, like that's where Carr has looked to him, and whether you want to call it a safety blanket, whatever it is, I think it fits.
And I think the way teams are playing them right now, with trying to take away the explosive plays with Shaheed and Olave, that again, the middle of the field is going to be more open. Whether that's going to be Kamara, whether it's going to be Thomas, whether it's going to be one of the tight ends, they have to take advantage of that going forward.
Sure, and we haven't seen too much. I mean, I think Taysom has like 1 reception this year. Foster Moreau, I mean, I think he's got like 2. He doesn't have many if he's got more than that.
Jimmy Graham, 1 or 2.
1 or 2, same thing. So I do think, maybe we will start seeing those tight ends incorporated, but I do think some of the throws that Thomas has caught, those were
tight ends.
Yeah, tight ends in Vegas that were eating that up. Or those are tight end kind of like routes or plays that you'd normally see. But again, like I said, I hope that this was a step in the right direction for an offense that has not looked right.
And they have to, but it starts up front, and it starts again with the trust of Carr of his offensive line. Again, this past week, you saw him a little bit more mobile. You saw him again like it was in week 1 and week 2, where maybe he was moving a little bit to be able to take advantage of, again, the throwing lanes. I don't think he did that in the 5 quarters that, again, the Green Bay game, and then, of course, coming and trying to play injured. But hopefully we'll see a continued growth with him in the offense. I do want to talk about the defense, because they have been, with the exception of, again, the fourth quarter of the Green Bay game and somewhat the Tampa game, they played outstanding. They were lights out this past week against New England. Give us your thoughts. I mean, from Granderson to the second level to, again, they bring Marcus May back this week, but Howden came in, played well. That secondary may be one of the best secondaries in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, Marshawn Lattimore is playing at a level that is fantastic. But you're right. I mean, Alontae Taylor has had nice moments this year and is only in his second year. I mean, even the Honey Badger, there's times where you don't see him, but when you do see him.
When you put him at that robber position, he just excels.
Yeah, and so, again, in up front, I mean, Cam Jordan is eating up double teams, which is freeing up Granderson. Even Brian Brissy is coming along, is a rookie. I mean, he's still learning and, got that illegal hands to the face. But still, I think, and I also say this, like, the defense was good the last few years of Drew Brees. This was a defensive team that Drew Brees was a little bit of a shell of himself, or at least the player that was, lighting it up in the late 2000s and early 2010s. And I do think Dennis Allen is a really, really great. I don't know if Dennis Allen's a great head coach yet. I hope he can be a great head coach. But as defensive coordinator, he's fantastic. And the defensive players talk about how smart he is, how he game plans an opponent. I mean, Demario Davis is still one of the highest rated linebackers this season in the NFL. Pete Werner is fantastic. They've got the right pieces. And when you think about this too, like it says a lot about Dennis and his staff, and really I give Dennis a lot of credit for this, because they have had changes the last couple of years at the coordinator positions and in the secondary with their coaches. So I think Dennis is the linchpin and the architect of the defense, just how Peyton was, even though Carmichael was here and Lombardi was here and those guys were here. It was Peyton's offense. This is Dennis's offense, and they're awesome, and they missed massively on Marcus Davenport. Peyton Turner is trending way bust right now. I mean, like, horrible bust. I mean, imagine if you hit on those picks. Like what you could. I mean, right now you're a top 5 unit in the NFL because you looked into Granderson as an undrafted player when you missed on somebody else. I mean, just imagine if you would have hit on some of those. Those guys you've invested in early. I mean, the sky's kind of the limit even more.
And look, they're a versatile defense as well. They can come in. They can drop into coverage. They're a very good man-to-man team. He's not blitzing as much as he's been in the past, because he's been able to get, again, pressure with 4 down linemen, which is huge for them. Every level of the defense is playing well.
Yeah, I mean, look, Nathan Shepard has been a really nice addition from the Jets. Colin Saunders, we haven't said his name. I think he does just the dirty work.
Right, he does. Takes up the blocker.
But, I mean, it just seems like, every move they made on defense
has worked.
Besides those 2 high picks, I mean, Pete Werner was a second-round draft pick. It's fantastic. You know what I mean? I mean, Jordan Howden's like a 4th or 5th rounder.
Adebo.
He steps in Adebo is a quality starter in the league. Like Alontae Taylor, second-round draft pick, looks like he's going to be a solid slot guy for years to come and only get better at it. So you're right. And again, I do think Dennis is a great defensive coach and a great defensive mind, and knows how to attack offenses, knows how to take away their best attributes, and does just a fantastic job.
And I think the special teams, the coverage units are outstanding. And again, except for the miss against Green Bay, Groupie's been perfect. And again, when you got a guy that could kick the ball from 53, 54 yards again, that is such a weapon for a team.
Yeah, without question. I mean, it looks like they certainly made the right move. I mean, that's a tough call.
That was a gutsy call.
Yeah, I mean, to get rid of a guy who's proven, and Will Lutz, who had a fantastic camp coming off that injury-plagued season last year, and to keep a rookie, unproven guy. I mean, that took guts, and so far, it's early, but it looks like they made the right decision.
Talk about this week with Houston. Somebody watches this on YouTube right now, wants to know about this game, and again, how you think they're going to play CJ, and of course, again, your thoughts on the game as a whole.
Yeah, I certainly think, look, I watched a little bit of that game last week, Houston in Atlanta, and I certainly think Houston has talent. Like, I think CJ Stroud is it may win the Rookie of the Year this year and is going to have the opportunity to do so. But he's like, to me, what we just talked about, Saints defense is one of the best veteran units in the NFL. I'm not saying that a rookie quarterback won't have some moments in this game, but at the end of the day, I think they'll be able to confuse him, to trick him, to create pressure, to just like they did for Bryce Young. Like, and look, the offense, almost sunk them in that game against Carolina, but defensively, they did a really great job against Bryce Young, who I think is another really good young player. I think Stroud could be better, and I think that Houston may be a little further than Carolina. But I just think at the end of the day, this defense is going to figure C.J. Stroud out and put him in enough. Jim Mora does stuff with us at WDSU. He goes, I've never been around a football player as smart as Peyton, that he coached the offense. Like, he was basically the offensive coordinator. I know Tom Moore was there, but he was the guy. And he goes, Peyton's rookie year, we went 3-13. He threw the most interceptions by a rookie in NFL history until a few years ago when it was broken. Another player broke that. He goes, when you're a rookie in the NFL, it is harder and it is different. And the next year, Peyton turned it around and went 13-3. So I think Stroud is good. I just think the Saints defense is going to give him issues. And I just hope the Saints offense doesn't regress. Just continue to move in the direction you're moving. And I think the Saints come away with this victory.
If they can continue to run the football effectively and use play action, it's going to really help them because of the weapons they have.
Yeah, and again, look, if this is a young defense. They drafted Will Anderson last year. It's still a young defense, and I think DeMeco Ryans is, really good defensive coordinator in San Francisco, is a really good player. I think he's an ascending young coach. And Houston is going to be a team that could potentially really start to make some noise in the AFC. It's just not this year. So I think that all of the veteran experience that this team has, you look at their young talent, this is when that moxie, football IQ, been there, done that. This is when that's a game you win because of all those reasons.
He is Fletcher Mackel of Channel 6 Sports, WDSU here in New Orleans. I am Eric Asher. I'm your host. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll hear from our underwriters. We come back. We'll talk Tulane. We'll talk Troy Dannon. We'll talk LSU and Auburn. And, of course, we'll talk the Pelicans as well. All that coming up here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Stay tuned.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Acadian Custom Shutters is locally owned and operated, specializing in interior and exterior shutters and window coverings, as well as awnings and patio covers. Acadian Custom Shutters offers American products with personal service and workmanship, serving the South Shore, North Shore, and Mississippi Gulf Coast. More information is available at 985-893-3119 or AcadianCustomShutters.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Fletcher Mackel is our guest. We'll talk Tulane. Again, Tulane taking on Memphis on Friday night. It's a nationally televised game, 6 o'clock ESPN locally. Biggest game for the year for Tulane now when you start talking about, again, Memphis. A lot of people thought, myself included, that Texas San Antonio might be the team that would be going neck and neck with Tulane, and then would be a tough game at the end of the season, possibly going for the AAC championship. But it looks like it's Memphis and Tulane right now. And this is a Memphis team that Tulane has not beaten in Memphis since 1998, the undefeated season. Tulane playing really good football right now. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I remember 2019, in a much different team. But Tulane opened up 5-1, and their only loss was at Auburn to by like a touchdown. And that was a Friday night game in Memphis. That was going to be, I think Memphis was coming off of that, New Year's Six bowl game. Mike Norvell, I believe, was still their coach. And that was going to be the statement game, and Tulane just got bombed. Now, again, I think the roles have reversed. Tulane is coming off the New Year's Six bowl game. This would be a massive statement for Memphis. And I covered that Memphis game last year. That was a game that Ron Hunter, the basketball coach, bought the extra tickets to guarantee the sellout. And it was a great atmosphere. That was when they started to kind of, people really started to believe, like, in this team is like, okay, could they do something special? But that was a neck and neck game with Memphis, even in Yeoman Stadium. So I certainly think that Memphis is capable of giving them a run. And with the three big boy teams, not big boy, that's unfair to say that, but just the three teams that had perennial been the best teams in the conference, in Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, leaving for the Big 12. These are the two best teams that are left. Like you just mentioned, Texas, San Antonio. Those teams that came in from Conference USA and the Sun Belt, I think have to catch up a little bit. So, like, that's what I think is hurting Texas, San Antonio. They're just, again, they played some Power 5 teams, but I just don't think, I think Tulane they're not going to be as challenging as people thought. Same with FAU or whoever else. UAB, was a bowl team last year, but they're struggling this year. To me, this is for the conference championship. That Tulane Memphis, the winner of this game, we're going to be talking about as a potential New Year's Six, Cotton Bowl, Orange Bowl, Peach Bowl, and that's where we're going to end up. So this is a huge game. I still think Tulane's going to go on the road and win. Willie Fritz has done a lot of firsts since he got to Tulane. This will be the first time they beat Memphis in 25 years, because I really think they're going to win this game. But it won't be easy. It's just, it never is against Memphis.
No, it never is. 439 yards on offense per game. They're averaging about 36.6 points per game. They just came off a win off Boise State. They're 4-1, 1-0 in the conference. So again, they'll be a formidable opponent. Always a lot of team speed with Memphis as well.
Yeah, and look, I think I know Memphis was one of those teams that felt like we should have been in the Big 12. We should be in the ACC. They felt like they were on the cut line and I think they were right. I think they were the next team up. And again, I think Tulane can be in that conversation. Boise from another could be in that conversation. But I think Memphis is the one that if the Big 12 would have gone one more, I think Memphis probably would have been the team. Like the ACC, SMU just bought their way in. I certainly think that's a team that the ACC will look at if they expand anymore. But you're right, Memphis has always been able, for years and years, people forget how consistently good they've been. They played in, I think, back-to-back New Year's Six bowl games, that they are a perennial bowl team that always gets, via transfer portal now or even before, they do have elite talent.
Right, and of course, again, Tulane with a week off to prepare. That means another week for Michael Pratt to heal. I love what they're doing now with Hughes as their running back. But again, the defense has been the big story for Tulane so far. And again, on all three levels, how well they played. I didn't expect them to have the secondary they have. But again, their safeties have played well. They lose their two best linebackers. Again, they reload there. And that defensive line is an SEC line.
Yeah, I mean, look, and look, they got a lot of quality transfers, kids that have come from, like Kansas State and even LSU. And so, I mean, Willie has done a great job in the portal of identifying the right players, recruiting the right players. The kid Grubbs from Tech, who went to Holy Cross. I mean, all of these guys, look, Machado's a guy that they recruited, and so they put the right pieces together.
Small comes from LSU.
Right, that's what I mean. And so you look at what they've done and how they've done it. And I mean, look, I've covered a couple of their games this year, and some of those guys, just like Dorian Williams, are going to end up getting drafted and playing in the NFL. I looked at the way they played Ole Miss versus the way that LSU played Ole Miss, and they played Tulane's defense, to me, looked far more formidable than LSU's defense. And I mean, you're talking about an SEC team. That's why I don't think people understand how good Tulane football is right now. That if Michael Pratt plays, they probably beat Ole Miss. And that's an Ole Miss team that scored 55 on LSU. I mean, that's why, and I know we're going to talk about Troy Gannon. When Troy Gannon said, you can't win championships here, it upset me because I thought, if the playoffs expanded to 12, that Tulane team last year, that was a playoff game last year. USC, Tulane was a playoff game. They won it. They would have moved on. You look, I've seen that team play, and I mean, Kansas State was in the Sugar Bowl last year. They beat them. Ole Miss, they should have beaten, and Ole Miss went to, to me, where Tulane is right now is capable of beating anybody in the country.
No, I'm with you, and we're going to get into Troy Dan in a moment. And I think it starts again with Willie Fritz and what he's been able to do, the consistency at Tulane now. Obviously having a quarterback like Michael Pratt, you see the skill position players, they're reloading every year there. But again, it comes down to, again, the biggest difference between Tulane now and Tulane maybe in the past is up front. You look at their offensive line and defensive line. Defensive line, they're too deep on the defensive line.
And really talented. I mean, that's the thing, is you're 100% correct, is that in the past, Power 5 teams or bigger teams in their conference at the end could wear them down. I mean, look, Michael Pratt early in his career took hits that were cringeworthy. Right. I mean, because he was running for his life, or it was just they didn't have the size, the speed, the strength to go toe-to-toe for 4 quarters with even the better teams in their conference, the Cincinnatis, the SMUs for a while, you know, the Houstons and the UCFs. Now they do. Now they are the ones dominating them, and I think that it took Willie Fritz a long time to get those guys, but they've got them.
Right, and you got to home grow that. I mean, again, you got to red shirt. You got to grow them within the organization. Is this a team that can run the table if they with Memphis and then get win the AAC championship and get to a New Year's Six bowl?
Oh, no doubt. Like I think that's probably what's going to happen. Okay. If they beat Memphis, they're going to be favored in every game.
Right.
I mean, every game.
There's
no team on the rest of their schedule with 6 new teams in this conference. And, I mean, look, everybody they play the rest of the way. They play North Texas. I don't think they'll be favored in that game. You know, they play Texas State. They're going to be favored in that game. They'll be favored in every single game the rest of the way. And could they lose? Sure, anything's possible. But if they win Friday, I think they finish 11-1, play in the conference championship. Against whom I don't know, maybe Memphis again. That's what concerns me is Tulane lost to UCF, got a chance to play them again. You had to beat Cincinnati to get UCF again, then beat them to win the conference championship. So Tulane could beat Memphis on Friday and then have to beat them again in Yeoman to go to a New Year's Six. But I think Tulane is going to get to the conference championship game again with a chance to win it and play. I don't think they'll go back to the Cotton Bowl again if they win it, because I don't think the Cotton Bowl will want them. I don't think they'll want to go back. But I think they'll be in either the Peach or the Orange Bowl.
Okay, there you go. Troy Dannon leaves for the University of Washington. A lot of people want to talk about his legacy. What is his legacy at Tulane?
I mean, he was there. If football is good right now, I am not as big of a Troy Dannon person as some people. And again, I don't want to disparage him because he didn't do anything wrong. They were never mired in controversy. They were never they didn't do anything wrong. Like, he obviously ran a program that was above board, that was respectable, that seemed like it was always moving in the right direction. That is hard to do. When you manage hundreds of people and have hundreds of student athletes, I mean, again, we don't, in the news, we don't talk about players getting in trouble. It's always players doing the right things the right way, coaches saying the right things and doing the right things. That is very important. But I also don't love it when people celebrate Troy Dannon somebody told me this place is so much better now. How is it so much better? If anything, it's exactly what it was when he got there, except for Willie Fritz. And kudos to Willie Fritz for one monster football season and potentially 2. I'm not trying to take that away from him. That happened on his watch. The Cotton Bowl last year. But he didn't build. I mean, Rick Dixon and Betsy Becker-Laborde were the ones who basically built Yeoman Stadium. He didn't build Turchin Stadium. He inherited awesome facilities. He got a chance to hire all his own coaches. Willie Fritz was a no-brainer hire. There were Tulane people that wanted to hire Willie Fritz out of Sam Houston before they hired Curtis Johnson. Willie Fritz was the easiest hire to ever make, coming from Georgia Southern right off a bowl win to Tulane. I mean, that was the easiest thing he ever did and the smartest thing he ever did. But he hired Mike Dunleavy. That was an out-of-the-box hire. That was crazy. Worst record in the history of the basketball program. Basketball has still never been to the NCAA or the NIT. Troy Dannon told me personally, coming from Northern Iowa, I know basketball, I'll fix basketball. Didn't fix basketball. Baseball just produced the worst record in the history of the program. He's gone through 2 coaches. They never went to the postseason on his watch. He talked about a practice indoor facility in a bubble. He never got it built. So again, his legacy to me is he was there, he ran a clean program, he was a huge self-promoter, and they had one mega football season. But other than that, I don't want to disparage him.
No.
But I also don't want to celebrate him as some savior who brought this program to unprecedented success and achievement, because I think that is crazy. And I do take a little exception to people when they say it's so much better now. Then explain it to me. Explain it to me how it's so much better, because I just gave everybody real hardcore facts that it may have actually gotten worse in some areas under him than better under him.
Ditto. I couldn't have said it better. All right, new AD. What are they looking for? Are they looking for a fundraiser? How much input does Willie Fritz have in this selection? Give me your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, you and I were off camera joking about it, that maybe they offer Willie Fritz the AD job. If he goes to a New Year's Six bowl game, does he want to be the AD and he can handpick his football coach? I mean, Skip Bertman did that at LSU, went from baseball and picked his own guy. I don't think that happens. I think that Willie Fritz has input because he's the most important coach on campus, coaching the most important team, and you want to keep him. I mean, look, there's going to be jobs this year. If Willie Fritz goes to another, look, he was ready to take that Georgia Tech job, and they were ready to hire him, and it fell apart at the last minute, and good for Tulane because the fact that he's staying is amazing. But Northwestern has a job open. Houston, I mean, he coached in the Houston area. They're in the Big 12 now. If they make a move, they got a lot of big money donors that could suck him back to Texas. So keeping Willie Fritz uptown is important. That doesn't mean you say, hire your guy, Willie. That's not how it works. But I do think he'll have the ability to red flag some people. If they say, what do you think of this person? He may say, I don't know about that. They're going to take that under consideration. So he is a voice in the process, 100%. I certainly think they're looking for somebody that can navigate the NCAA because college football is crazy, and it's going to continue to be crazy. And so there's going to be continued movement. Is the ACC going to expand? Is the Big 12 going to expand?
You got to prepare for that.
And you need somebody that is a power player that can navigate the NCAA, that can navigate those conferences, and can also work here with big money donors and people that are going to need to pony up. Look at SMU had to buy their way into the ACC. You need somebody on the ground that connects with big money people here, but that also can navigate the landscape of the NCAA, not a novice that has never dealt with the big boys at the NCAA and in the conferences, and also not somebody who's a total outsider that is a foreigner to New Orleans and Tulane that the big money people have to wait and see on. So I'm on the record. Scott Sidwell should be the guy. Like, he can do all of those things. That he's a former AD, former Tulane baseball player, administrator there, AD at San Francisco, number 2 guy at Syracuse, number 2 guy at Penn State, who's a born and raised New Orleanian who looks at this like, what more on paper do you not want about somebody who can connect with the people here and can navigate the NCAA landscape because he's been there, done that. Like that, again, that screams to me, I'm not in their world, so I don't know the politics of it, of like, how is he regarded in some of these, NCAA circles, in the alumni circles. But as somebody who covers it from the outside, looking at him on paper, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find somebody who checks every box across the board. You'll find some people that check certain boxes and certain people that check other boxes, but I think he's going to check all of them. And at the end of the day, I certainly think he's the person to lead them forward.
Remember where you heard it first. Because I hadn't heard the name. But,
I don't think I'm first, but I do think other people are jumping on that.
Great point. Let's go to LSU. 49-39 winner over Missouri. They're 4-2, 2-1 in the SEC. Let's talk positive first, and let's talk about Jaden Daniels and this offense. Jaden Daniels, again, how he's not in the Heisman, really in a serious Heisman conversation is beyond me on what he's been able to do, putting this team on its back. A lot of that has to do, again, with how they're playing right now. But your thoughts on Daniels and the offense as a whole?
Yeah, just to answer your second question, he's not at the forefront of the Heisman race because Caleb Williams is the reigning champ. We haven't had a back-to-back winner in decades. And his team is still undefeated. So, again, like USC is still right there. They're undefeated, aren't they? Yeah, USC, they came back and beat. I'm like, great, they came back and won that game in triple overtime. I'm like, great. I thought I stayed up and watched it. I'm like, let me just make sure. And here's the thing. We're going to have a monster matchup this weekend. Washington, Oregon. Penix and Bo Nix are both undefeated right now, and one of those teams is going to lose. But right now, I think as the season goes on, if Jaden Daniels, if they beat Auburn this weekend, if they go upset Alabama, if they can get past Florida, if they get to the SEC championship game again, like last year, at 10-2, and beating Georgia to get into the playoff is what they have to do again, I think he's going to really emerge as the Heisman frontrunner if he continues to play at this clip. But right now, what's hurting him is those teams are looked at as playoff championship caliber teams. And because LSU has 2 early season losses, Jaden Daniels is a little bit like, his numbers are good, but he hasn't produced as a team yet. So,
how good can this offense be?
This offense is already great. I mean, say, how good can it be? Like, what more does he need to do? Like, this is an offense that is maybe not Joe Burrow 60 touchdowns historic, but not far off. I mean, like, if he continues to play at this pace, I mean, he's got 19 touchdown passes.
Right.
Like, he could throw 40 touchdowns. Like, I mean, he's going to be, you know, if they just keep doing what they're doing, like, they're already awesome.
Right.
Like, I mean,
and you've added Diggs as a runner now.
Right. I mean, he's become the go-to guy.
Right.
And so, I mean, I just look at it and say, I mean, just keep doing what you're doing,
Right.
keep evolving, keep finding more synergy because they're already awesome. It's the defense to me that is such a disaster that has cost them the Florida State game and the Ole Miss game.
Yeah.
It probably should have cost them the Missouri game
Right.
if Jaden Daniels doesn't just carry them. And I get it, the defense made a couple of big plays, but they were still really bad against Missouri. Like, I don't know how, I mean, look, Auburn's defense is bad.
Right.
But when they go to Bama, when they have to play Georgia, like, I just don't have a lot of confidence in them being a legit playoff team.
Right, and look, a lot of that is because, again, the defensive line is not playing as we expected them to play.
Sure.
Mason Smith looked like he's rounding the shape now. Maybe, again, what we saw last week may be a precursor to what we're going to see down the end. But Fletcher, I think we talked about it on the radio show. I've said this. They remind me of the 2014 to 2016 Saints.
It's
I mean,
true.
they just do.
Yeah.
You know, Breeze has got to put up all these
Yeah.
points. The offense has got to score every
5,000
time.
yards passing,
I mean,
yeah.
right. And then again, the defense is just porous and giving up 30 points a game, and that's how it's been. You know, this season so far.
I mean,
and it was
without question.
we knew the defensive backfield was going to struggle.
Ton of question
Okay,
marks,
but
right.
but we also thought that the front seven would be able to contain
Harold
it.
Perkins, Mason
Right.
Smith.
Come
we
on.
thought they're going to be a
Wingo.
wrecking ball, right? Wingo, where they're going to be a wrecking ball up front.
Right.
It's just, is anybody going to be able to attack their secondary? And even up front, you're right, it hasn't been. I mean, look, Harold Perkins I get what they're doing. They want to showcase him. He's going to go to the NFL. They want to show him in coverage more what he can do, not just a go get the quarterback kid. But, I mean, that's been a work in progress. Like you said, Mason Smith hasn't been, at times he has, but he hasn't been this elite dominating force that we all thought he was going to be. Yeah, it's just been, it's the most, to me, I remember after the national championship going to cover that first game during COVID when Mississippi State came to town, and it was the most yards ever, and it was like, whoa, I talk about a fall from grace from national championship to the most yards ever in an SEC game by an offense with that air raid system. And I jokingly said that for anybody who thought the 2020 LSU defense was bad, the 2023 unit is saying, like, hold my beer, because the crazy thing that's upsetting is I think this unit has so much more so much more talent.
Me too.
Better coaching, better talent. And, I mean, things were falling apart that summer with Coach O, with, you know, everything that happened with social justice that summer, COVID, losing all those guys. This is a team that came in with massive expectations. Question marks, yes, but still, it's been a huge disappointment.
No doubt. All right, LSU, Auburn this weekend, huge game, nationally televised Saturday night, 6 o'clock on ESPN. Your thoughts?
I don't know. I think LSU's going to win. But then again, I just don't know. I mean, I think Hugh Freeze is a really good coach. I mean, I think he proved that at Ole Miss. I think
he's
that
an offensive genius.
That's what I mean. I think he's a really good coach.
Right.
And I think if there's anybody that can exploit a defense, it's Hugh Freeze. I mean, I just remember his teams at Ole Miss when he came to the Sugar Bowl.
right.
And he had, you know, Jim Kelly's nephew. And I mean, he had some elite playmakers. And I mean, they ran roughshod on that year. The only thing they couldn't get past was Bama. And so I worry about that. But I look at Jaden Daniels and I go, I mean, even Hugh Freeze said, if people aren't talking about him as like the Heisman favorite, they're crazy. So I think that we could see another Ole Miss type game, another Missouri early type game, where we're going to see some crazy shootout. In these games with LSU and Auburn, the great thing about them, there or here, the field goals at the end of games. I mean, it's always, I remember, you know, Matt Flynn to, I can't think of the little kid number 2, Demetrius Byrd. And it was like the unbelievable play. I mean, it is always crazy with LSU Auburn. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's going to be a crazy game, and I think LSU is going to win, but I don't know.
Yeah. Let's talk Pels. First preseason game in the books here. They're going to change the way they utilize Zion a bit. The big three are healthy. That obviously has to be a big part of what's going to happen with this season this year. They're not going to have Trey Murphy till maybe November, December. We're not sure when Nance and Alvarado will come back. Hopefully they'll be back by again, the 25th when they open up against Memphis in Memphis. Your thoughts on this team going into the season?
So I thought last year, coming off the playoffs, Zion back healthy and focused, that this team was a top 4 team in the West. I went on the record and I said that. I just, and until January 2nd, I was right. Like they are talented. Like, make no mistake, they have depth. they can guard, they can score. They can't shoot. Now, they got major issues when it comes to three-point shooting.
Well, then how does Borrego work out then?
Well, let me say this, but I will say this. 19 threes in the first half the other night. They're at least creating more threes. I don't know if they're always going to make them, but like CJ, you know, he ended up taking, I think, 9 3-pointers the other night, or 7 3-pointers of his 9 shots early in the game. Zion is going to create space. I mean, you saw Jonas parked in the corner to either create space for Zion and help him as a playmaker find guys. So I think James Borrego, who is brought in as the associate head coach, basically offensive coordinator, his teams in Charlotte shot a lot of threes. And now he had better probably shooters. Sure. You know, especially with a guy like Terry Rozier, you know, Hayward can hit threes. LaMelo's not a bad three-point shooter. Not great, but not bad. And so I do think they're going to be a more like open and spaced offense.
And you should be with a guy like Zion.
Sure, and create space for him and get it to your shooters and take them. They're eventually going to go in. And I think you saw Herb take the open look when Zion got him the ball. CJ told us something the other day at practice. He goes, look, I'm not going to force threes. Like, if they give me a 2, I've made a living. Him and Brandon Ingram is mid-range assassins. If they're going to give it to him, take it. But he goes, we are going to be looking for more threes, even if it's just, I'm not going to take a 3 just to take a bad shot. But I think Borrego's offense is going to focus more on spacing and creating open looks, knowing they have to do that. And here's the thing. I always tell people this. I know Zion dealt with off-the-court drama. I know he's had conditioning issues. I know he seems immature. But man, oh man, like when he plays, he is like one of one. Like he is an unstoppable force. Like the 2 years, the 1 year he played 61 games, his second year, he was an all-star, and he was awesome. Last year, he played 29 games before he was an all-star. Like, people have to understand, if he can just stay healthy a full season, he's not just an all-star. If he could string together 3 productive years, he is a perennial MVP. He is Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Luka. Like, he just has to stay healthy. Now, it falls on him. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay focused. Like, he is the one who has to make that happen. But if he can do it, he has a chance to be not just an all-star player, an MVP player.
What about a minute left? If there's a weakness on this team, what is it? And do you think they'll go out and try to fill that weakness?
If they didn't fill it now, I don't think they are. Shooting is their weakness. They needed shooting. Losing Trey Murphy hurts them. That the average NBA team shoots 38 threes a game. I don't know how they get to that number. Now look, the other night they took a ton, 19 in the first half. That gets them there. Borrego's offense, but they still, CJ's a good shooter, not a great shooter. Like, I think that...
Can Hawkins make a difference this season?
Maybe as a rookie, maybe, maybe. Trey Murphy was the one who was ready to explode. And he still may explode at the end of this season, but the knee injury sets him back a little bit. But that's their biggest concern. 3-point shooting. Do they lose the math game against teams that shoot it really well?
Expectations.
Top 4 in the West, nothing less.
And if it doesn't happen?
It depends on where they finish. I mean, if they finish 5 or 6 and go out in the playoffs, I can stomach that. If they're in the play-in, I think you really start to question from the top down what they're doing and how they're doing it. If they're in the play-in and out early, then you really have to question what they're doing.
Fletch, thanks so much. One more time, tell the folks about the great show over at Channel 6.
Game On every Sunday night after NFL football and our news. And you can follow me on Twitter or X at Fletcher WDSU.
Thanks for joining us today. Fletcher Mackel, Channel 6 Sports. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, plenty of ways to catch our program now. QR code on your screen will take you either to my website or, again, the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. And then, of course, set your DVR for your favorite time slot. You'll never miss the program. Also, again, you catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM. That is 4 to 6 weekdays. You can check us out on the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app. That's our digital platforms. Anchor, Spotify is where you can catch our podcasts. And, of course, again, we're on Monday through Friday, 4 to 6. I want to thank the underwriters who make this show possible, each and every one of those underwriters. Please support our underwriters. Also, again, the WLE production staff that do a fantastic job in producing our program, which includes Logan Graffia, also Alex Chacon, our director, William Hill, including Ron Yeager and Jim Dotson. And, of course, want to thank Fletcher Mackel, Channel 6 Sports, for joining us on the program today. I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.